All right. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Mr. Islam Answers Back show. Got another good topic for you tonight dealing with some current events. So I'm sure it will make for an interesting discussion this evening. As we always do, let's give a few moments for everyone to join in and catch up. And while we wait, we will go ahead and send out a couple of tweets, Facebook posts, and let everybody know that the show is live. The show is live right now. So join in, everyone. Join in. All right, so let's do that. All right, let's go ahead and send out a quick tweet to everybody know, yes, the show is live right now, and you can join in as we speak. All right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Go ahead and send out a quick tweet to everybody know, yes, the show is live right now, and you. All right, yeah, that's cool. And right on Twitter, you can actually check it out right from the Twitter, right from the Twitter feed. So let's tweet that right now. Okay, on live right now. YouTube live. Join the discussion. All right, we already put it on Facebook, so let's go. All right, Riff, welcome. Macho Man, assalamu alaikum. I'm good tonight. How you guys doing tonight? How are you all doing this evening? So, like I always say, don't forget, send out some tweets. Let everybody know. Send out some tweets. Send out some Facebook posts, Instagram, whatever other social media you're using. Send it out and let everybody know that we are on live. The show is on. Tell them to come and join the discussion. We have a good discussion tonight, as we usually do. All right, so let's go ahead and so send that. And don't forget to like the video even now as we speak. If you actually like it right now live, that will cause the algorithms on YouTube to go up, and more people can actually see that, see the show when they're on YouTube searching for something to look at. They'll see that we're on live right now, and they can join us. So don't forget to like the video as we speak. All right. Let's give it just a few more moments for people to catch up. We'll give it to 8:15, right? It's 8:13 right now. Maybe we'll give it to 8:15, 8:16. Give everyone a chance to join in and check out the show this evening. Good, brother Macho Man. Good to hear that you're doing good. Good to hear that you're doing good. So come on, let's get these numbers up. Let's get more people in. Let's get more people to join in so we can have for a lively discussion. Come on, let's get it in. Let's get it in. Let's get it in. Let me see. Let me go to Facebook real quick and again let everybody know the show is live. Live right now. For those who are just chiming in, we're giving everyone a few moments to join in So bear with us as we just want to, make sure most of the viewers don't miss don't miss the beginning of the show. So we want to give them a chance to join in. All right, we want to give everyone a chance to catch up and be here at the beginning of the show so they don't miss too much. Okay. So that's what we're doing. We're just waiting for that moment to want people to catch up. Again, one more time, everybody know live. We're live right now. Live on the air now. Okay. Let's see. I need to refresh it. Okay. Let's see. Let's close some of these here. We don't have too many things opened up. All right, it's 8:18. Let's see here. Guess we'll go ahead and get started then, right? We don't want to start too late. All right, so all others will have to just catch up with the show. All right, so if you've been following the news here in the United States, although it doesn't seem like I've been seeing people complaining that they're not covering it as much, but if you've been following some of the news here in the United States, I'm sure you've heard about what they call the Austin bomber, who for the last few weeks had set up some package bombs in the state of Texas, in the city of Austin, Texas, and recently they were on to him and they were about to close in on him, and of course he blew himself up. But as usual, when it comes to a person who is not a Muslim, who is not African American or black, who is not Latino or Mexican, Middle Eastern, there seems to be a narrative that is constantly being put out about these persons whenever one of these persons who I just described is, or rather, when the person is suspected is not one of the members of the groups that I described. They seem to have a different narrative for that person, right? They always seem to get a different narrative. They're a loner, um, you know, wasn't known for trouble. They put out, a nice picture of the person. They don't, try to look too much. They don't really tell us much about their past. They want to give us all this positive information about them, how they were troubled and they were going through something and whatever. And that's the excuse given for, you know, for that person and his character. However, when the person is from one of the groups that I described, the narrative is different. They paint the person as sinister, evil, a thug, troublemaker, radical, a terrorist. They have no problem telling you that the person is a terrorist. They're not concerned about what that person was going through. They're not concerned that the person may have lost family members or whatever. You know, none of that matters. It's just that the person was a thug. He or she was an illegal immigrant. They were a radical Islamist, ISIS, you know, or ISIS sympathizer. They don't care whether the person was going through something, you know, financial trouble, hardship. They don't care about any of that when it's a member of one of the groups that I described, i.e., Black, African American, Latino, Mexican, Muslim, Middle Eastern, Arab, right? When it's one of those groups, then it doesn't none of that matters. They're not concerned about what they went through or what they were going through. They don't look at it, as they said with this person, that it was a call for help. If they can try to find a you know a less flattering picture of you, they will. As you can see with this person, they put out a nice, you know, they give you the nice picture of the guy smiling, and you know he was known as a good person, and it seems that he was trying to cry out for help. Well, you know, maybe the black so-called thug, maybe he had a rough life. Maybe he was crying out for help, right? Maybe the alleged Muslim terrorist, bomber, etc. Maybe he was crying out for help. Maybe his family, you know, got killed, and he was angry, and he was going through something, and he was crying out for help, you know, and so that's why he committed the act that he did it, you know. Same thing with the, you know, the Latino criminal or Mexican immigrant or legal immigrant or whatever. You know, maybe they were looking for a better life, or maybe their family was struggling back home and they were going through something. But of course, we'll never know, because when it comes to members of those groups, we're not told that, right? They don't get that narrative. They don't get the benefit of the doubt that, well, you know, what caused them to do it? Maybe it was this or that, or struggles, financial, family member died, whatever. You know what I mean? Like I believe they said that to one of the other people, one of the other prior shootings, mass shooters, right? That, you know, his mother had just died, or he was going through something. You know, he was adopted, he was struggling. You know, they gave, you know, they gave you these excuses for them. But again, when it's you know, just, and this is the problem that we have, everyone. This is why this is an issue, because it's been happening so much so that now we see the pattern, and people of color and other, you know, non-white groups are starting to recognize the pattern now, because it's becoming so blatant. Time after time after time, we keep seeing that when the perpetrator is white, they're getting a different narrative. They're getting a different narrative. And people are, it's there's no doubt about it no more. Before, people were joking about it at first, right? The first couple of times people were making jokes about it. That, hey, look, when it's a white guy, he's this, he's crazy, he's, you know, or he's a loner or whatever, lone wolf, blah, you know. But now it's happening so much so that now the pattern is becoming so blatant that you can't ignore it. Now everybody's like, wait a minute, hold on now. This is becoming too blatant now. Now we're seeing that this is just too blatant. It's right in our face, and everyone can see it. Everyone can see it now. Everyone is recognizing it now, that the narrative is always different, right? They want you to have, you know, they're trying to get you to, you know, have sympathy for the perpetrator, when of course he's a white person. But when the perpetrator when the perpetrator is not white, they don't get that. Even when the victim, like for example, let's go back to the Trayvon Martin case, right? Trayvon Martin, it's not a terrorist case, but again, this is still part of that same narrative. When the Trayvon Martin incident happened, this is the young man that was killed in Florida by George Zimmerman, so-called Neighborhood Watch. What they did in this case is they demonized the victim. Trayvon Martin was the victim of that incident, but they demonized him instead of George Zimmerman, right? They tried to demonize, or they did demonize, Trayvon Martin instead, right? They tried to find less flattering pictures of him. They painted the event as if he was the troublemaker. Meanwhile, he was the one that was being followed. He was the one that ran away. He was the one that, on the phone call to his friend, his female friend, he said that it was a stranger. The guy's watching him, some weird guy. He runs away. But instead of them looking at it and say, well, George Zimmerman threatened him, made him feel threatened, intimidated him, whatever. No, they made him to be the bad guy. Trayvon was the bad guy, even though he was the one that got killed, even though he was the victim, even though he was wrongly profiled and followed and chased. Whereas in any other circumstance, you would have looked at that and said, well, wait a minute. We all teach our children to beware of strangers, right? We all teach them that. Beware of strangers. Here he is. It's at night. It's dark. And there's a stranger pulling up, looking at him, right? Weird. So fearful, he runs away, right? And then think about it, put yourself in that situation. Now you run away, what makes it worse? You run away, that's one thing. What makes it worse is then what? Then the stranger chases you, right? Now the stranger chases you. Now your fear has been confirmed, right? Because now your fear has been confirmed, because now that stranger that you recognize as strange, now he's chasing you. Now that lets you know for sure that you are in danger. So under regular circumstances, everybody would have looked at that and said, yeah, the kid was being chased. He feared for his life. The guy catches to him. What you going to do? Of course, you're going to what? Fight for your life, right? But instead, no, Trayvon was the bad guy. Trayvon was the thug. They claimed that he was knocking the guy's head against the pavement or whatever. So in other words, to justify George Zimmerman killing, but everybody, if it was under different circumstances, everybody would have looked at it and said, yeah, the kid being chased by the stranger, and the stranger chases him, catches up to him, and the kid starts fighting for his life. The kid was right to fight for his life. But no, not in this case. The kid wasn't right to fight for his life against the stranger. And so they demonized the victim, Trayvon, instead. You see? And so this happens all the time. The narrative. Even we can even go back. We can even go back. Again, not a terrorist incident, but again, how the media gives us a different narrative when the perpetrators are not black, are not Latino, are not Muslim, are not Middle Eastern. We can go back to Katrina. Remember the hurricane in Katrina? This was again when we started to recognize how the different narratives were being told. During the Hurricane Katrina, after the aftermath of the hurricane, people were in survival mode looking for food to survive, right? So you might have remembered it. People who were, you may have remembered at the time, there was some news reports where they showed a black person or black people getting food. But the description of the incident was described as looting. Looters loot to take this or that from the stores, food, whatever. But then there was other news reports that showed white people who were doing it. But what they said was what? Oh, here, white people, these people are trying to survive looking for food. So the narrative was different. These people are described as trying to survive looking for food, but the black people were described as looters, even though they were looking for food too, but the description was different. And so we began to see this game of the different narratives even way back then. And I'm sure there were incidents even before then how the narratives was different. But now that social media has become more, has increased, the use of social media has increased a lot. So now news is, information is passing more at an increased rate. We now see that it has become even more blatant now. So when we've had all these mass shooters who've been white males, right? Denver, the Columbine, the Aurora movie theater shooter, what was that one? The dozens of different other school shootings, the most recent school shooting, all the other ones, probably Sandy Hook, all these different shootings, mass shootings that have taken place, right? The perpetrators are given the benefit of the doubt. The media wants to try to get you to sympathize for them. I can even remember this one that just came to mind. I remember also way back during the first cases of the Iraq War, right? The invasion of Iraq. There was some incidents where some members of the military had been charged with killing some civilians, right? There was one case where one of the soldiers he just went on a rampage one night. He took his gun, he left the base, and he went out and just started killing civilians. He wasn't fighting, he wasn't killing Iraqi soldiers or enemy soldiers. He went out and he just went on a rampage and started killing regular Iraqi civilians. And again, what did they do? The media, instead of demonizing him as a bad guy, an evil man, they made excuses for him. They wanted to humanize him. They wanted you to have sympathy for him. They were claiming that, oh, he had been on deployment for such a long time. Back at home, he was having financial struggles. As if that justifies what he did. But again, this is how they do it. They wanted you to have sympathy for him. He actually, in cold blood, took his gun, left the military base, and went on a rampage that night and killed Iraqi civilians as they slept. As they slept in their home, he just went on a rampage, and they were making excuses for him. They didn't call him a terrorist. They didn't call him a killer, a murderer, an evil man. No, they wanted you to feel bad for him. Oh my goodness, he's been on deployment. Back at home, he was having financial struggles, relationship struggles with his wife, all these different excuses. And we know darn well that if it had been the other way around, they would make no excuses. They don't get no excuses, right? If an Arab does that, no excuses. They don't care. They don't care why the Arab did it, why the Muslim did. They don't care, right? They're not concerned about what he was going through, what emotions he was feeling, if he was having a hard time with his relationship, if he was having money troubles, if his family just got killed by a drone, if he's upset because of the invasion, right? They don't care. They don't humanize them. They don't want you to feel empathy, sympathy for them. They don't want you to identify with what problems they could be going through. They could care less. That person is just evil, right? He's just an evil Muslim terrorist. But he could have been going through something. His family could have just died. He could be going through financial struggles. He could be upset about the invasion of his country or whatever. But no. He's just evil. He's just pure evil. Islam is the blame. Islam inspired him. He's just an evil Muslim following that book, the Quran, right? That's the narrative that you get. If it's a black person who does something here in America, he's just a thug, another thug. He's just another troublemaking thug, gangster, thug, right? They don't care what he's going through. They don't care. He could be going through something. Maybe he's going through something. Maybe he's having financial struggle. Maybe his mother just died, or somebody in his family died, or maybe he lost his home, or he got kicked out, or he's homeless, or whatever various other reasons they give to the other perpetrators. No, it doesn't matter. Nope, he's just an evil, badass thug. He's just a gangster. He's just a hood, thug, black gangster. They don't care. Don't feel any sympathy for him. Don't feel any empathy for him. Don't give him the benefit of doubt. Don't concern yourself for what he was going through to make him do what he did. Same thing if it's a Latino immigrant did something wrong. They don't care. Have no concern whether his family was going through something. Have no concern if he was having trouble with his relationship with his wife. Don't concern yourself with that. He's just an illegal Latino or Mexican, whatever, immigrant. He's dangerous. He's trouble. They're all, remember with Donald Trump, they're all thugs and rapists. Right? They're all thugs and rapists. Don't worry about what they're going through. Don't even look at them as human. Don't feel any empathy or sympathy for them. They're just thugs. Rapists, killers, freeloaders, illegal immigrants, Muslim terrorists, black gangster thugs. That's the narrative that we get. And we're tired of it, right? Everyone is tired of it because everyone can see the blatant narratives, right? The blatant false narrative here. We're tired of it. Call these people what they are. And here, with this guy here, now news has come out that he was part of some Christian group. Now they're revealing that he was part of a Christian survivalist group that actually taught him about dangerous chemicals and what chemicals can do this and do that, where they taught them how to shoot and all of that stuff. But again, if we do that, right? If there's a Muslim camp that teaches you how to shoot and defend yourself and all of that, right? Oh, that might be a suspected terrorist training camp. If a black group does that, oh, you the Black Panthers, right? You the Black Panthers. Now you guys are trying to overthrow the government. You're black racists. You want to be the new Black Panthers. But they can do this. But Christian groups can do this, right? Christian groups, you can have camps that teach your children how to shoot and train y'all how to fight and all of that. That's okay. But if I get a group like that, I might get arrested. The whole camp will get shut down. And we'll all get picked up by the FBI as what? Terrorist training camp. Even though, hey, we might just be training, right? We might just be training just to train. Just so we can learn how to defend ourselves. But no, we do that. Oh no, terrorist training camp. Can't do that. If a black group, as like I said, if I join a black group who's a black gun group, they might say, oh, you guys are terrorists. Black Lives Matter terrorists. Black Panther terrorists. If a Latino group does it, they'll come up with some charge against you. Oh, you might be, some Latino gang, Mexican gang, whatever. And even after this news has come out, they still not calling him a terrorist. Right? They're still not calling him a terrorist. Still not calling him a terrorist. He was a troubled young man, they say. He was crying out for help, they say. Right? That's the narrative he gets. That's the narrative that he gets. Crying out for help. A recent attack in France? No, I didn't hear about it. I didn't hear about it. Right? So now I didn't hear about it. Yeah, you're right. Just like the Charleston shooting, Sandy Hook. Exactly. They're never terrorists. Right? Yeah, even with Dylan Roof, I don't even think they called Dylan Roof, the one that he shot up the church. I don't even think they called him a terrorist either. Same thing with him. He was troubled young man. Right? He was a troubled young man. But this one is really interesting. It'll be interesting to see what develops further from this story here, that he was with some Christian survivalist group. Right? Now, the other thing about it, because they were trying to downplay the racist motive behind it, but in the early days when it first came out, they were talking about how it was apparent that the bombings were targeting people of color. It targeted prominent black families in Austin. And it was specific because these black families were known involved in civil rights work. So it wasn't like they were just some random black family. They seemed to have been black families that were involved in important civil rights work in the community. And the two families that were targeted, again, not a coincidence, was that they had connections to each other. They knew each other. They were somehow related. And again, they were both involved, members of their family or whatever were involved in civil rights work. Then one of the victims was a Hispanic woman. So it appeared that this person who had been targeting black people and other people of color. Now, the last incident was at the FedEx plant, but obviously that appears that wasn't necessarily his intended target, because the packages blew up at the plant, at the FedEx plant. So obviously he was maybe perhaps trying to send them to the intended target, but they blew up at the FedEx processing plant because the others had obviously been delivered. So this time maybe he did something wrong or he didn't time it right or whatever, and they blew up at the plant and hurt it hurt two gentlemen. But again, didn't appear that those were the intended targets. So don't let that fool you that this still wasn't a racially motivated terrorist attack, because the first initial bombings definitely were only targeting blacks and Latinos as the ones who were injured or harmed or killed. And so as you see here, the reports were talking about how it appears that the targeting is directed towards these prominent black families. And they were also talking about how recently, again, that he had a list of further targets, that they seem to have discovered that he had a list of further targets. They didn't release who the targets were as of yet, but they said he had more targets. He had more intended targets. So it will be interesting to see who were these other intended targets. But again, see, none of this, they want to downplay all of this. Right? They want to downplay. They want to say, oh, that they don't have a motive and that it wasn't racial and he's not a terrorist. And they're not trying to say too much about that Christian survivalist group that he had been training with or whatever. They don't want to say too much about that. Right? They don't want to say too much about that. And so I want everybody to understand the reason why this is an issue for us as Muslims, as Black Americans, as Hispanics, Latino, right? This is an issue for us because we're tired of the false narrative. We want you to report about these people the same way that you report about when the suspect is a Muslim or the suspect is black or Hispanic, Latino, Arab, Middle Eastern. We want you to give them, these people, the same type of reporting. Right? Call them evil, call them terrorists, just the same. Stop with trying to, stop with trying to get sympathy for them. Stop with trying to, make their characters seem pleasant and nice. Report about them the same way you report about these others. Because it's already clear that the Western media is biased. Right? It's already clear that there is biased or racist reporting, right, in the way things are reported. And so the reason why we wanted to have this show tonight was to address this direct issue, which is very blatant now in the Western media. And so we're calling on the media outlets to start reporting these incidents just the same way you report it when it's an alleged Muslim suspect or Middle Eastern suspect or black suspect or Latino suspect. Report when the suspect is white just the same. Call him a terrorist. Speak about his evil act as evil. Don't try to garner sympathy for him by telling us about his troubled past or his troubled current situation or how a member of his family just died and he was going through something, because you don't do that for the others, right? You could care less. You don't try to understand what made the black person, the Muslim, the Middle Eastern, or the Arab, the Latino. You don't try. You're not trying to see what might have motivated to do what they did. You're not concerned about what was going on in their private life at the time. So don't be concerned when these guys do it either. Right? Don't be concerned when they do it. Just report it as it is, an evil act of terrorism. Because that's exactly what he was doing. He was terrorizing these families. Right? And it's funny because look, if you pay attention, look how on this article here, look at the small print. What does it say? The subtitle. What does it say? 23-year-old terrorized Texas city with explosive packages under alias Kelly Kilmore. But they won't call him a terrorist. So they'll say his act, they'll tell you, isn't that interesting? They tell you what his action was. He terrorized the city. But they're not calling him a terrorist, right? They're not calling him a terrorist, but they will tell you, ironically, that his action was what? He terrorized the city, Austin. But we're not calling him a terrorist. It's interesting, right? Very interesting. Very interesting. And so, and again, I say this too, that reasons like this are reasons why we have to, as a people, expand the fields that we get into. It's important that we don't only go and try to be doctors or pharmacists or computer programmers. It's important that we get into journalism as well, people. We're going to have to start teaching our children to seek other occupations beyond, or other professions beyond just the ones that we are prestigious, right? Beyond just being a doctor. Being a doctor, that's great and well, yes. But we need to start pushing our children to other avenues, other professions, such as journalism. Because this is what we need in order to be able to start getting a more balanced, narrative out there. So not only do we start pushing our children to be journalists, or for us to start media companies where we can put out the news ourselves, right? And I mean, and let us build major media outlets so we can compete with the CNNs and the MSNBCs, the Fox Newses, right? We need to build big media outlets as well, so that way we can report the news, and it'll be just as widespread as it is with CNN and Fox and the various others, right? So not only start encouraging our children, or maybe even ourselves, if you're still willing to change your occupation or whatever, change even ourselves to see if we can become journalists. Get involved in these various media outlets, either become journalists and get employed by them, become producers, do all of that, become producers, become editors, start our own media outlets, so that way we can start having a more fair and balanced propagation of information and news. Because this has to change, man. This has to change. The false narrative cannot continue like this. The false narrative cannot continue like this. So yes, indeed, start, like I said, talk to your children and give them ideas about journalism, or like I said, or yourselves, or see if we can start media outlets, media companies, broadcasting companies, news companies, whatever, newspapers, magazines. We have to get the information out there, and so it can be more balanced. But like I said, also become part of these companies, become producers, editors, journalists, newscasters, whatever, so that way we could start to have a say in how the news is put out, right? So we can start to have a say on how the news is put out. So whether we start our own, or whether we become journalists and become employed by these major companies and become producers or whatever, we can start to change the way the news is put out. So it's put out really fair and balanced, right? Fox News claims that they're fair and balanced, but so that way we can really make sure that the news is really fair and balanced, and not, as it is today, biased and covertly racist, and sometimes overtly, right? Mostly covertly though, when like incidents like these. So we need to change the institutionalized bias that's there. So those are some of the solutions to change. Yes, indeed. Please like the video. Those who are watching right now, please like the video, so that way the numbers can go up as we're live, and then people who are on YouTube looking for something to watch will see this pop up in the live streams that are going on right now. All right, but yes, indeed. That's one of the solutions that we need to change the way the narrative is put out. And like I said, not only, one important part of that is, as I said, becoming producers and editors. That's what's even more important, because a lot of times if you're just a journalist, obviously you have somebody who's over you, your producers over you if you're a part of a show, your editors over you if you're a journalist at a newspaper, and then they'll still control how you're putting out the narrative. So not only do we need to become journalists to get the information out, but we also need to, make sure we seek higher positions in the field, such as editors and producers and such, right? So that way we can control the way the information is put out and make sure that it's put out fairly and balanced. You feel me on that? In the UK, they're blaming Islam for the Pakistani group. Oh yeah, well I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. But see, that's part of what I'm saying as well, because I've seen reports about white grooming gangs in the UK. But you're right. When I see the media from the UK, it's always blaming the Pakistani. But it's also interesting. Not only do they blame the Pakistani, but they try to make it seem like these guys were Muslims, right? They tell you that they were Muslim grooming gangs or whatever. And obviously, if you're smart enough to realize what's going on, you can see right through that, right? Because you can say, well, first of all, how are these guys? Were they devout Muslims? No, they may have come from a Muslim background, but clearly they were not devout practicing Muslims. So stop promoting it, stop putting it out in the media as if these were Muslim, i.e. their gang is actually a religiously, inspired gang that does grooming, when that's not the case. No, they may have come from a Muslim background, but they were not practicing devout Muslims. No more than the Italian mafia is a Catholic, a Catholic gang, right? They may come from a Catholic background, but their organization is not Catholic inspired. You understand what I'm saying? But that's how they like to play it. Oh, Muslim grooming gang. No, what do you mean Muslim? What do you mean Muslim grooming? Are you trying to tell me that this group was created as a Muslim inspired grooming gang, which is of course illegal according to Islam, to prostitute women out, to promote fornication and adultery? Come on now, get real. But this is how the game is played, and that's why I'm saying why we need to do what we need to do. We need to get involved in journalism and production and being editors and things of this nature, because if not, they will always have the control of the narrative. They will be the ones telling the story. And of course, as they tell the story, this influences society. This influences society. So if we want society to represent the people fairly, this is what we have to do, right? This is what we have to do. This is why, you saw such hype here in the United States and maybe in the UK as well about the movie Black Panther, the superhero Black Panther, right? Even though we must admit there have been other black superhero movies before this, like Blade and Spawn. Maybe they didn't get the hype that Black Panther got, but this is the importance of this is why there was so much hype behind it, because still even with Blade or Spawn, they were so far and in between where most of the other superheroes just don't represent the demographic of other groups, right? That's why it was so important, because it's like, look, finally we got a cool, nice, cool superhero who our children could look up to and say, yeah, I got a superhero who I can look up to, who I can inspire, who I can imagine that I am. Even though, yeah, sure, we grew up imagining that we were Superman. Sure, we grew up imagining that we were Batman, but in the back of our mind, you knew you could never really be Batman if you were a little black boy. You could never really be Superman if you were really, because you're a little black boy or Hispanic or whatever, right? So that's why representation is so important, because we can't deny that media has influence, right? The media and what you see, what you hear, what you watch, what you listen to, it has influence upon you for the negative or the positive. So that's why you see superheroes, they're trying to do that now. So it was important, even though it's just an imaginary thing, but it's important to still have that imagery, that positive image that you could see. Right? Even the new Spider-Man, right? The new Spider-Man, not the one in the movies, but in the comics, he's now he's a black Afro-Latino, Miles Morales, right? Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man, not the one in the movies, the one in the comic book. He's a young black Latino man, black and Puerto Rican. His name is Miles Morales, right? So that's important to see that. Many people don't get it, but it is important to see that, again, especially in a society that heavily relies upon images and what we see, what we hear, and listen to, right? Those images can influence you. I've talked about this before, where they had what they call the doll test. If you may have seen it, look that up. If you haven't, look it up. Look up the doll test. And that doll test exposes how we don't realize it, but how we are influenced by what we see and what we hear, and the images that are portrayed, whether a positive or negative, about the people the group that you come from. So that's why it became so important for images, other images, to be represented beyond just seeing, white images, white superheroes. That's why it became important, because they realized that it's influencing people subconsciously. It was influencing the way people think on both sides, both white, both black, and Latino, whatever. But like I said, if you get a chance, look that up. Look, it's called the doll test. Look up the doll test on YouTube, and you'll see how you could see how subconsciously because obviously no one told these kids that, right? That they were this, they were that. But look at the doll test, and you will see how clearly they had to learn it from the images that society was putting out. It was subconsciously teaching them that, you know, basically it was subconsciously teaching them racism. And if you were black, then you were taking that in as well, thinking that your own color was ugly, your own color was bad, your own color was dirty. And if you were on the other side, then you thought, yeah, that color is bad, ugly, this, that, dirty, everything associated with negativity. So again, very important that we get ourselves involved in the media. Perhaps, like I said, recommend to your children, encourage your children to look at that as an option. Getting into journalism, getting into the media, radio, broadcast, production, producers, editors, etc. Or even starting your own, like Al Jazeera, right? Start your own. We may have to do that more. They have more than one, so we can have more than one too. Al Jazeera is just one. We can have more, right? More outlets that can represent our side of the story, right? Just like you have Univision and Telemundo. I think the only one black people got is BET, right? Maybe it might be more, but I don't know. Maybe just BET. But we need more, right? More media outlets, more representation. Now, what's this about the French attack? Yeah, so are you saying that this is a recent attack in France, or this is an old one? Is this a recent attack incident in France, or this is an old incident? What's going on in France? I haven't heard anything as of yet. So fill me in. Fill me in. While you do that, I'd like to take this time to mention the sponsorship for the show. Today's show, as always, is brought to you by our book entitled He Never Was God, How Scripture Shows That Jesus Christ Was Fully a Man and Not God. Available on Amazon.com and Amazon Kindle. You can get it in paperback and in ebook form. The link to purchase it is in the description of this video down below. You can click on it and you can purchase the book directly from there, again, in ebook form or in paperback. It's also brought to you by our DVD entitled Takia, The Lie They Made Against Islam. This DVB provides a detailed, informative, and thorough refutation of the claim that anti-Islamic haters and bigots have made over the years that supposedly Islam has a teaching called taqiyya that supposedly teaches that Muslims are allowed to lie and deceive non-Muslims in promoting Islam, which is false. And in this DVB, it refutes that claim. This DVB is beneficial for you as a Muslim because it will give you the information that you need to refute the claim if it is ever brought to you, and how you can answer it with facts, with information, with verses from the Quran, scholars. We try to cover every base that we can. It is beneficial to you as a non-Muslim if you are sincerely looking for the truth. Maybe you heard about this claim, right? Maybe you heard about this claim and you want to know, is it true? Do Muslims really have a teaching like that? And you're really searching for the truth. This DVB will help you in finding the truth, to see that you've been lied to, that no such teaching exists. All right? In addition to that, you can sponsor our platform here and in other avenues, because sometimes we do debates and things like that. And if you want to sponsor our platform, you can do that by also clicking the links in the description of this video, by donating through our website, thecaseforislam.webs.com. There is a dash mark in between the words, so just click the link in the description of the video to be taken to the where you can donate directly. Also, you can make a direct donation through PayPal, through the PayPal Me feature that they now have added to PayPal. So you can do that. And as I mentioned last show, we added another option for you, which is through Patreon. Patreon is a website that allows fans or followers or students of a person who does whatever. It can be a person who's a musician, an artist, a painter, a photographer, a teacher, whatever, a writer, whatever form of media that the person has, you can support them through Patreon. And the Patreon platform allows you to make a pledge to sponsor a person. In this case, it would be me that you would be sponsoring. And you will have access to exclusive content only to Patreon supporters. So this content would be only exclusive to you. Only you would get this information. Only you would be able to see certain videos or get access to certain articles, etc., by sponsoring the person on Patreon. So I've added that as another option. And of course, as I always say, as always, you always have the option right there in the chat, right there in the chat on YouTube. There is a feature known as the super chat. If you are using the chat right now, you can see the $ right underneath where you type your words that you want to type to the chat. You see there's a $ right there. You click on that and you can make a donation through that as well. So I'm leaving all options. I always tell everybody that if it's preferable if you use the links in the description of the video, but if it's easier for you to use the super chat, by all means go ahead and do so. But as I always tell you, just remember that when you use the super chat, the donation does not come to the person right away, and a portion of your donation is taken. So the person to whom you are sending the donation, in this case myself or any other YouTuber, they do not get the full amount that you sent. A portion is taken, and then the remaining balance is sent to the person. So say, if like I said, if you send $10 or $20, maybe the YouTuber will only get $17.50 out of that. They took the other amount. So if you want to make sure that your full donation gets to myself or any other, even if you do it to other YouTubers, then it's best to use the features. I've seen a lot of YouTubers do this, where they have the PayPal or whatever, or the Patreon or whatever, where you can donate directly to the YouTuber that way. But again, like I said, I'm not against the super chat. If you want to use the super chat and that's easier for you, go ahead, it's okay. But again, the links in the description of the video are preferable. All right, so that's the sponsorship for the show, and you can sponsor the show through any of those means, and you can donate to the platform through the means that I gave, and again, they are in the description of the video. So let's see. What do we have here? So tell me about this France thing. The attacker in France is 26-year-old Houdin Lachdine. Yeah, so it took place yesterday. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. I didn't hear anything. I'm surprised they're not talking about it over here in the United States. They're not talking about it here in the I didn't see anything about it. So I'll definitely look it up once the show's over and we'll see what they're talking about. But I haven't heard anything. I'm surprised because usually, they usually pick up on that international stuff, but they haven't said anything as of yet. So what are they saying? Are they saying it was an ISIS attack or some kind of radical Islamism? What are they saying about the attack in France? What are they saying about it? Are they claiming it was just what, some kind of random violence, terrorist attack, ISIS? What are they saying about it? Took place yesterday. Yeah, I didn't hear it. I'll have to look it up. I'll have to see what they're talking about it. 'Cause I haven't heard anything yet. All right, well, that's our show. So again, we just want to put it out there to everyone to understand that many people are fed up with the false narrative, and we want the media to start reporting about these terrorists the same way you report about any other terrorists. Stop trying to make people feel empathy for them or sympathy for them. Tell it like it is, the same way you tell it like it is when it's a suspected Muslim terrorist or Arab Middle Eastern terrorist. Tell it the same way. Tell it the same way. And again, as I said, my advice to those of us out there who are also tired of it is that the other way to solve it is that we have to start getting involved in the media as well. Become journalists, become broadcasters, become producers, become editors, so that way we also can start to change the way the media is biased as well. Because if more of us are getting involved, then we can start to balance out the bias that's there. All right, what's this? Oh, okay. And so what did he do? What kind of attack did he do? Was he shooting, a bombing, stabbing? What did he do? All right. Well, like I said, we'll have to look that up. And it was a shooting. You said it was a shooting. Shooting. Okay. All right. Well, like I said, we'll look that up and maybe we'll see if we can talk about that the next show and see what's going on with that. All right. All right, everyone. If there isn't any, does anybody have any last comments or statements or questions they want to ask before we sign off for tonight's show? If not, we'll go ahead and close out on that note. All right. Well, so yeah, we'll go ahead and close out on that note. Again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning into tonight's show. If you made a donation during the show, I'd like to go ahead and thank you ahead of time. I'll be able to check. Let's see. Wait, what's this? What's this? Oh, okay. All right. All right. So, as I said, I want to again thank everyone for tuning in to tonight's show. If you made a donation during the show, I always check when I get off, and I'll thank you. I like to thank you ahead of time. Remember, everyone, you can always support the platform even when the show's not on. The links to the donation or to the book or to the DVB, they're always in the description area. So even if you watch the show at a different time, like say right now you are watching the show, you're somebody who's watching the show and you're not watching it live. You came and you're watching it a few days later or whatever. You can still make a donation. You can still purchase out my book. You can still purchase the DVD. The links are always live in the description of the video, so they're always there. So they're always there. You can always make a donation at any time. You can always get the book or the DVD or join the Patreon. You know, all of that is always available to you. So just remember that it can be done at any time. All right. So again, I'm signing off. Like, thank you all for tuning in. Again, if you did make a donation during the show, I'd like to thank you ahead of time. May Allah reward you and bless you for your donation and for your support. All right. And again, please remember, you can get the book at any time. All right. The links in the description are always live at any time, no matter when you watch the show. If you come days later, weeks later, they're always there, and you have access to those options right there. Okay. All right. So guys, I will see you next show, inshallah. Let's see if we can do our next show on Sunday. Okay. Let's see if we can do our next show on Sunday. If anything, nothing comes up in the news, then we'll see if we can do another refutation video. Right. We'll pick maybe another David Wood video or some other hater out there, and we'll see if we can make a refutation video against them. All right. All right. So you all take it easy. Have a good night or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Assalamu alaikum.